Well, again, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So tell me your name and what do you do?
So I'm Brent Fields, and I have the honor and privilege of being the Chief Executive Officer for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Texas. And it's a role that I've been in for a little over 13 years now.
Oh my gosh. So for those who don't know what Big Brothers Big Sisters is, can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We are a mentoring program, and we've been around for over 100 years nationally. It's our 50th year of service in Central Texas. And at the end of the day, our vision is to help kids succeed in life. And the way we do that is by creating, supporting safe, effective mentoring relationships. And we serve about 1,000 families a year throughout the Central Texas area.
Awesome. I actually have been I was in the military, so I've traveled a lot. And
Yeah.
I was a big in Atlanta. And
Oh,
my little sister, I met her when she was 10. And so she really just grew up with my family, with my son, my older son. And so then when we moved to Houston, I also was there with the
oh my
Houston.
goodness. That's
And
great.
and so I had another little sister, and it was funny because my other little sister in Atlanta, she was already in college, and she was like, "Don't ever get another one." I was like, "I don't know if I can make that promise." And so then I got Katie. The other first one was Jacoya. The second was Katie, and so Katie was biracial, and her mom was white Canadian,
Uh-huh.
and so she had no exposure to African American side. And so her mom got her a
Wow.
big because she wanted her to embrace, that
Yeah.
side of her and learn more about it. And so it was funny because again, Katie is, she was awesome. And I met her when she was 10. And so when she was 12, I moved to Austin. And so, we had to figure out, okay, so do we
Yeah.
break them into, and so her mom actually wanted her to stay as my mentee. And so we got special permission. So we would get her, for the weekend or something, we had to get special,
Mhm.
authorization. But so now she's just one of the family. She's beautiful
That's
girl. She ended
cool.
up majoring in communications like I did. And yeah,
I love
amazing.
it.
It's
I
amazing. It's
love it.
amazing. They're beautiful girls, and just I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan for a long
Oh,
time.
that's
But
cool. I love it. Oh, hey, Anita, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn off this lamp because I see it's throwing a glare on that
okay.
thing behind me. Well, that is so awesome. That's my favorite thing is running into people who have that experience. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it was kind of disappointing when I got to Austin because you guys didn't have any African American girls.
You know what? And I'm happy to address this as part of the interview, but we are having an unprecedented moment right now of actually being in a position where we could be serving more girls. So normally our wait list is so large that we never do child recruitment. And even today we have anywhere from 300 to 400 kids on our wait list, but they're mostly boys. They're mostly boys of color.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of our biggest needs is recruiting more men who are bilingual. But yeah, because of, and this is kind of a good problem and an unfortunate one, because categorically more women are volunteering for our program, we're in a position to serve all the girls on our wait list. And
Yeah.
so we actually have more women ready to mentor than we have girls who've asked for our program.
Yeah, I started a mentorship program at my church, at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church, and
Mhm.
we had similar issues with the young
Really?
folks. Yeah, and it's interesting, and just to I know this is part of the interview, but we had some issues with the moms. The moms were not secure enough to allow their
Yeah.
daughters, because what would happen, because it's church, right? And so
Yep.
the girls would sign up, and then when we would call, the moms would say she doesn't need a mentor. And then I'd say,
Right.
well, she signed up, and then she's like, well, are you sure? Yeah. And so the moms were, 'cause she's like, well, there's no
Yeah.
reason. But it was funny because my first mentee mentee, Jacoya in Atlanta, her mom she had two daughters. She had them young. And she was saying that she wanted her daughters to obviously to grow up and be all they could be. And because she was
Mhm.
a young mom, teen mom, she was really wanting someone else to be there just in case, because she was like, someone, if her daughters ever needed to talk to someone and they couldn't talk to
Yeah.
her. And
Yeah.
I asked her, because I was like, you have a great job, because I was asking her, why would you want to be in the program and why am I mentoring her? And she said, because she's not, like I said, she was a college graduate. She, was working a good job. She owned her own home in Atlanta. And so, and she said that, like I said, she just wanted an extension of her family,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And so it was like, to
Exactly.
be able to serve your daughter, you know what I mean? And it's a
Yep.
selfless thing to do. And
Yep.
so that's the kind of mother
Yep.
you want, right? Is someone who looks out for the daughter first and not their own self. And so,
But
so
to your point, and it's interesting. I I think about this a lot, but you're one of the few people that's sort of been insightful enough to talk about it that way. But I often say, and I was a single dad with my oldest, who was 3 at the time. He's now 33. But I remember I used to tell people all the time, I'm a good man. I care. I show up. Um, but on my best day, there just wasn't enough of me to go around. And I used to pray every night, please put some great people in his life, because he needs good coaches and good teachers and good elders at church. He needs that village like any kid does. But then I also think about something you said, people will sometimes um, very inappropriately suggest that what we're doing is rescuing bad kids from bad homes, and it just perturbs the crap out of me. And I'll often say, can you imagine the courage it takes as a single mom to walk in this building and say, I'm a good person, I have a
Mhm.
good kid, but there's just not enough of me to go around and I need some help. I was like, the trust that they're choosing to place in us and to invite us to partner with them, these are strong, amazing people. They're not broken. They don't need to be fixed or rescued, but that takes a lot to just ask for
It
that.
really does. And my my mentee, Jacoy, not Jacoy, but Katie, the one that's here in Houston, and her mom, like I said, is Canadian, and her grandparents are from like another country, so they're both immigrants, and and so when she got to college, she embraced her Black side.
Mhm.
And so she was in the NAACP and some other stuff, and some things were going on. And I think her mom did not see eye to eye. And she had posted something online about her mother, saying that she was, she didn't understand, and she blah blah blah. And I called her. I swear it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I called her and I said, what in the hell is going on? I said, do you know how much your mother sacrificed for you? And I
Yeah,
said, on her best day, I said, she does the best that she can. And I said, for you to judge her,
yeah,
and nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect, but you have to help to educate, as opposed to just
yeah.
all of a sudden just getting, and I said, and another thing, it's your mother. You never ever blast your mother on social media. I
No.
better not see it. She was like, okay, I'm taking it off right now. I was like, okay, now go to bed.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah. So her mom is she's just a doll, and to this day she'll say, thank you so much for for helping me raise her, which I definitely don't take that lightly, but she's a sweetheart. But my family didn't, they didn't give her all the good parts of being Black either. They gave her some of the rough stuff too. So
Right.
they gave her all of it. But anyway, we're back to you. So tell us where you're born and raised.
Uh, Arkansas. I grew up in rural Northeast Arkansas, and spent most of my life there before I went to college.
And what was life like growing up in Arkansas?
Yeah, so my family, uneducated. I was the first person to go to college. Matter of fact, my mother was a sharecropper. She was one of 12 kids that picked cotton. That's what she did growing up. She was one of the first people to get a high school education. And So yeah, I used to say going to college wasn't a conversation. I don't even know if my family could spell college. But in so many ways, they blazed a trail for me. And granted, I don't think I knew that then. I know now just how much privilege and access I had that, was afforded to me. But yeah, pretty much grew up in rural small towns in Northeast Arkansas.
And when did you come to Austin?
Gosh, we've been here maybe 15 years. We lived in Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston. My wife lived in El Paso. We actually met in San Angelo when we were both in healthcare, but this has been home for about 15 years now.
My battery is going out. So what do you like most about your job? And we're going to also talk about your new job, but
Yeah,
what do you
yeah.
like most about your job?
It's a great mission, and the work we do matters. I mean, that's it, really. There's a huge need for what we do. There's a huge demand, and we know that it works. It has impact. So, I mean, what's not to like about that? But I also just get to work with great people and a culture I'm pretty grateful for and proud of. So it checks a lot of boxes for me, for sure.
What advice would you offer another young boy from Arkansas who's thinking about following your path, whose family didn't go to college? What advice would you offer?
Wow. I don't know. I think what opened up opportunities for me were having exposure to people who had a different lived experience of mine. So people at church, people in sports who went to college, who pursued a professional career, that just sort of created that as a reality for me. Yeah, I think there's huge power in seeing something in somebody else. Until you do, it's hard to believe that it could be real for you.
What life lessons have you learned?
In general, or in this role, or just yeah. Uh, I think probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned is the importance of just showing up as your authentic self. I think I spent a lot of my life trying to be something that I thought everybody else wanted or needed me to be, professionally thinking you've got to be the smartest person in the room, which I never am anyway. And I'm in my late 50s, so a lot of trips around the block, but I think learning that leadership is a whole lot about who you are and showing up authentically and having the courage to be vulnerable and acknowledge what you do and don't know, and um, accepting the gift of learning from others around you and that collective wisdom that you get to be part of.
So I took a few questions from Tim Ferriss that I really liked.
Oh.
I know. I'm gonna pretend to be as smart as he is. One of the questions he asked is, if you had a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world, and you could get a message out to millions and billions of people, what would that message be? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to quote my wife, who's probably my favorite inclusion activist, and that is, everyone deserves access to everything.
Explain more.
What's that?
Explain a little bit more.
A lot of our perspective comes from being the parents of a medically fragile child who lives with a lot of disabilities. So we just think about how many times in the course of our day we are in places and spaces that are not only not welcoming to our daughter, but places she can't access, can't experience, not to mention, even if she can get access, the tendency of, putting her in a corner with other people that fit, their description of challenges, rather than being welcomed and having an opportunity to belong. So we've learned firsthand from her journey the importance of that. And I see it with the families that we serve. I mean, most of the families we serve at Big Brothers Big Sisters are living at or below poverty, single parent homes. 40% of the students we serve have a family member incarcerated. And I just, I see every day from a very privileged position of my own, the places where they are not welcome, not included, not valued.
I know you're going to San Antonio. There's a park there that specifically for children with disabilities. I'm not sure what type of.
Morgan's Wonderland.
Yes. Have you been?
Well, that is one of 5 businesses I will be over in my new role. Yeah.
You stop it. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, I was stationed there, and I remember when I think when they were opening of the park. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I can't wait to talk to you about that. But
yeah, we've been there with my daughter many times. Yeah.
Oh wow, it's amazing. It's really amazing. In the last 5 years or so, what have you become better at saying no to?
Well, I think I've just become better at saying no, period. For a lot of my life, I didn't give myself that that opportunity. You often feel like you've got to be all things to all people, and you're a bad person if you don't accept every, opportunity. I think a good definition of effective leadership is spending most of your time doing things that only you can do. So it's not about, I'm too good for that, or it's beneath me, but where can I have the most impact? Where can I do the most good? And being strategic about where you invest your time and energy. So I think one specific example, to be honest with you, is I take nonprofit board experience very seriously. I've chaired a lot of boards. I've served on a lot of boards. I've reported to boards. And I think there's a tendency for some people with good intentions to just say yes to every board invitation, and they're on, 5, 6 different boards. The boards where I've been most impactful, I'm spending anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a week. And you can't do that with 5 boards and be effective. So I think one thing I've done is I said, I'm gonna take one leadership role for one board at a time. And I'm going to find something that aligns with my passion and my skills, and I'm going to invest in ways that are not scattered and random, but very intentional and deep, and have more impact. And that's a lot of people don't understand that. We're like, well, why wouldn't you be on our board? It aligns with things you've done and you care about. Well, I don't think it's my calling to, invest in every cause.
That's right. We call it staying in your own lane. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life over the last few months or recent history?
Oh, well, probably good books. I've got 4 or 5 on my nightstand right now, and they were all less than $100. So yeah, I'm a lifelong learner. I think, I'm always wanting to think about, read about, how to just show up authentically and be more effective. So yeah, I think of a couple of books I'm reading right now that check that box for me.
Well, this is a different question, and it may be the same answer, but I'm going to ask it now. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? And it could be money, time, energy, whatever.
I chaired a national board for an organization where I took on the task of helping them navigate a transition from their founder to their first CEO. And I think it's the most difficult, complex, important volunteer investment I've ever made. But leadership transitions are tricky and critical and impactful. And I think in the grand scheme of things, it went really well. It consumed a ton of my time and attention for about 2 years, but it was the right place and the right time to show up. And I'm really proud of it.
This is an interesting one, and I probably could ask your wife this question, and she probably have a few answers. What is an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm sure she would have a lot of good answers to that. Huh. I mean, they all seem usual to me.
Everything's relative, right?
Right, exactly. Huh.
Yeah, I've had anywhere from gummy bear addiction to video game addictions.
Hmm. Well, at the risk of sounding boring, between parenting and work, I don't have much of a social life. But I remember one time, if this doesn't answer your question, I can try a different way. But I remember one time I was complaining to my partner about, I just like to do the same thing for a while. I feel like every time I get good at something, the paradigm changes, or I change jobs or get a new project. And she just started laughing hysterically. And she said, "You really don't know yourself after all these years, do you?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You thrive on that. If you weren't involved in something that was a little bit chaotic, complicated, challenging, worthwhile, with a big learning curve, you would be very bored and unhappy." And so I think something that people find odd and intriguing about me are the big things that I take on that may not make sense, such as pursuing a PhD in my early 50s when I haven't been in school in 30 years. But I thought that was one of the funnest, most rewarding things I've ever done in my professional life.
That's a good one. In the last few years, what new belief or behavior or habit has most improved your life?
One of the most different but rewarding things that I was part of in the last few years that really has been impactful was a reverse mentoring experience with one of my staff members. Where normally it's the older seasoned executive taking a young professional under their wings and coaching them in all things leadership. And we sort of flipped that paradigm upside down. And I invited a person on my staff who was as much different as me in lived experiences as possible, for the sole purpose of them mentoring me. So in this case, it was a young lady, probably half my age, Latina, entry-level position. We have different personality, leadership styles, but she's also somebody that I'd been super impressed with, enjoyed being around, and knew I could learn a lot from. And I wish I'd had that idea earlier in my career, because it was a great experience, and it still informs my growth today.
When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do to get back to center?
Breathe. Literally, take a breath, meditate, yoga, get away, whether it's a 2-mile walk in my neighborhood end of the day, or a good podcast I haven't had time to enjoy, or a really good glass of wine with my wife with no kids around.
When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus, did I ask you that one? I mean, how do you get back to center?
That feels a little bit different, but go ahead.
How do you get back to center? Like, what types of things do you do to?
When I'm trying to kind of find my way, I'll often journal, just writing down kind of what I'm thinking, struggling with, challenged by. And in the course of doing that, I tend to kind of find my way. I also pride myself on having a lot of informal mentors. And so when I get stuck, I'll literally think, okay, who are those 5 or 6 people that just an hour with them puts me in a different mindset, and they're so gracious to show up when I need them.
How has failure or challenge or apparent failure set you up for later success?
Mm, well, I've had a lot of failures professionally and personally. I think if anything, it helped sort of destroy that mythic, you know, idea that you're going to be great at things most of the time. It just isn't true. Um, and it sort of creates a portfolio where you can kind of walk in going, okay, I'm going to do a lot of things today. I'm probably going to do some of them really well, and some of them are not going to go well. And I'll still choose to get back up the next day and keep swinging for the fence. So
How do you give back?
give back.
How do you give back to your community?
Mhm.
To the
Um, I'm a big fan of lead by example. So at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we've asked people to do and give a lot to this mission, and I've always felt like I needed to lead the way. So, my wife and I are major donors. I've done as much as I've asked any of my board members to do in terms of personal giving and fundraising. Um, in a different space, because we're parents of a kid with a lot of disabilities, we try to show up and give back in that space. So we try to be accessible and supportive to other parents who may be new to that journey. Um, and also even in terms of things that we do around disability rights and advocacy.
Why is diversity and equity important for you? And that's one of the reasons why you're on this top
Mhm.
10 list, because you you know a lot of times, when we first did this category, our community was really upset with me because our champions didn't look like us, and because all the other
Uh,
categories did. And what I shared with them was that we need people like you in the community who, because a lot of times folks, they look at us differently and they say, oh, that's too bad. But when you say it, to people who look like you, they understand, and and you can talk to them in their language, and be able to reach them. And that's how this grows, right? That's how it grows. So why is it important for you? And we appreciate you for being a champion, but why is it important?
yeah, and I'll start in my answer to that by sharing a confession that I don't pretend that that's always been something I've done well or cared about as much as I should have. But I would credit a lot of my community partners and mentors and colleagues who have really challenged me in that area. And I remember conversations I've had, quite frankly, with some of your previous honorees, where I said, um, what can I do? I'm a person that's almost a poster child for privilege. What value does my voice have? And I've had some colleagues that I really trust and respect a lot who've challenged me in that and said, you can say some things I can't. And when and how are you going to use that privilege to do something about it, systemically? And what are you going to be saying and modeling for other people in power that look like you? And I wish I could say that that's something I've thought about for a long time, but I hadn't. And I needed and appreciated somebody challenging me in that way. So I think about even very subtle ways when I'm in a meeting and somebody does or says something that is um, racist or demoralizing, and the number of times I've chosen to do nothing, say nothing, and I didn't use my power in that moment. Um, but I also just think about what I've seen in my work with Big Brothers Big Sisters, the importance of being relevant to the community we're trying to serve. And so if most of the kids we're serving, and they are brown and black kids, but most of our staff and board and partners look more like me, that's problematic. not because we're trying to check a box, but because my perspectives are limited by my own privilege and lived experience. And I think the job of a good CEO, but particularly one who's running a social service nonprofit, is to leverage the collective wisdom in the room and make sure that wisdom is representative of experiences that align with the mission you're charged to fulfill. So it matters because if I operated only out of my expertise and experience, that would be very problematic in terms of us fulfilling this mission, and quite limited.
That's great. You said you had 2 kids, right?
3. Mhm.
Three. So how do you think your kids will remember you?
Oh, I think one way they'll remember me is that crazy old man just kept trying new things, which sometimes probably seem unexpected and unorthodox to them, but I hope later in life it set up a pattern for them to be adaptable, be open, and be willing to show up in vulnerable ways and try new things and follow your heart. My dad was a great man, but he hated change. He was kind of, a person kind of stuck in his ways. And I had to have that modeling from other people. And so I hope I've been that to my kids. And that was even when I entered the PhD program in my early 50s, which was not a requirement for my job. It doesn't necessarily do something for me in a tangible way, but I hope that what my kids were seeing in that is the joy of being a lifelong learner and the importance of never reaching a point where you think you've arrived or fully developed, and that'll be part of their life journey as well.
How do you want to be remembered after you're gone?
I think more than any job I've had or any professional accomplishment, I would love to be known as someone who consistently showed up in authentic ways that created space where people wanted to be part of it and be their best selves.
You talked a little bit about books earlier, but what's your favorite book or book you'd recommend?
Well, my favorite books are usually what I'm reading at the time. So I can tell you 3 books that I'm reading right now that I'm very much loving. One is Jim Collins' latest book, who's one of my favorite authors, Entrepreneurship 2.0. Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead, and Stacey Abrams' book, Leading from the Outside. And I think there are 3 of the best books I've ever written, 3 of the best books I've ever read on leadership from 3 people that I just admire a great deal, not just in terms of what they've done professionally, but who they are and how they show up and just the kind of vibe that they bring to any conversation.
What do you feel is your place or your purpose?
Professionally, I've always said I'm a journalist. I'm not a technical expert on anything. So I think part of my purpose is bringing my skill, my experience, and my knowledge and passion to places where I can make a difference. And sometimes that's in a job, sometimes it's trying to be a decent dad to a teenage boy. Yeah.
What's your superpower?
It's funny. I was in a leadership class at LBJ and UT a couple of years ago, and that was actually an exercise we had spent a whole semester together being pretty vulnerable with each other. Um, and we had to go around the room and everybody had to say what other people's superpower was. And the one that was assigned to me was vulnerability, which I'd never had that said out loud in that kind of way, but I'll take that.
Why do you think they said that?
I think, some of them said I would not have expected someone who looks like you and is in the role you're in to share that openly about your struggles and your journey.
What's the best place you've ever lived or visited?
We kind of have a saying in our house that, home is what you make it, right? And we've lived in some cities that I wasn't a huge fan of that city, but we found ways to make it our home, by connections at, church or neighborhood or friends. Gosh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know. I know it sounds corny, but anywhere I'm at with my wife feels like home to me. And I think we could make a home anywhere. So we've been very lucky to live in some great places and have some great experiences. But, at the end of the day, at least for me, it's not your job or your zip code, but it's who you close and start the day with, right? And I'm very lucky I have somebody that I love and respect and trust and is my best friend, and that's home to me.
Did you tell me who your favorite person was?
Well, my wife, I think she's the smartest, most interesting champion of good things that I know, and I know her well. There are other people you think you know them, but do you really? So I'm not a big kind of famous person admirer, because I mean, I'd much rather spend an hour over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee with somebody I know to be authentic and impactful than some famous person that all I know is what I think they show up as, so.
What are you most proud of?
Probably my kids. I mean, everybody's proud of their kids, and I could talk all day about things they've done or whatever, but what I'm most proud of is just the human beings they are. And I think of my oldest son, he's kind, he's courageous, he's smart, he's gives back. He's spending his life doing impactful things that, some people couldn't, wouldn't do. That makes me proud.
So I always ask people what's next, and we kind of know what's next for
Yeah.
you, but let's talk about what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just announced Friday an offer that I accepted to be the president and CEO of Morgan's Inclusion Initiative, which is a company based in San Antonio, where I will manage the parent company that has about 4 or 5 other initiatives, one of which a lot of people know about is Morgan's Wonderland theme park. And I'll start there officially November 15th.
So what do you think is next for you? And we know that the job is next, but what's next?
Oh, well, things like, getting my second kid through high school and off to college, maybe. It's, figuring out what the next stage of care and support looks like for our daughter. It's thinking about moving to a different place from Austin to San Antonio. And hopefully, learning a lot. That's where I'm happiest. And I think this new job, this new career move will afford me a lot of opportunity to do some things I've never done, to work with some amazing people around a great cause in ways that'll definitely challenge me and allow me to grow. So I'm excited about that.
My dog, what do you enjoy doing in your leisure time?
I love going for a walk. I used to run when my knees were in better shape, but now it's a 2 or 3 mile walk. I love a great, quiet, good dinner with my wife with no interruptions, where we can finish a sentence together and stare at each other. I love those kind of unexpected, cool moments with my kids. Usually it's in the car on the way to something where they kind of open up or let their guard down, and you get to know them a little bit better. Yeah, those are some of my favorite times.
Well, my last question is, what does it mean to be chosen as a top 10 diversity champion? And this is something that we ask our community, we ask professionals that are out in the community as well, and business community, as well as our own community. I monitor a group of about 20,000 Central Texans, African Americans, and so a lot of times we start with the list and then we start breaking it down. And so it's, there's a few names that never come off the list. And so, so that's what's really cool. And your name was one of those that never came off the list, that was started on the top and never came off. And so, that says a lot about you. But, what does it mean to you? Because this is obviously how people see you in the community, the business and the civic community.
Well, I'll say first, I love that this recognition exists, because I'm a big believer that whatever you pay attention to and recognize and celebrate drives behavior and systemic thought. So I don't think we can do too much recognizing around things that matter and leadership traits and behaviors that this world desperately needs. So thank you for doing that. I'll confess, when I first heard that I was one of the honorees, I literally thought it was a mistake. And I remember texting a couple of friends, previous honorees, Colette and Carrie, saying, "Is this real? Like, did this really happen?" Because I have so many people in this community that I admire and respect, who I think do so much and have mentored and taught me. It felt very premature and unmerited. That being said, I'm thrilled to just be in the room, and if it gives me access to more awesome people that I get to know, then what a great gift. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's always funny, because that's the first thing I hear from most of the folks that we talk to is, this, I'm not worthy, or, I'm not there yet. And I always tell, Jesus, his disciples were all, none of them were like, super Christians, right? So,
right.
So that's why it's important. It's important. I mean, and I thought it was important to not just do one or two, right? Because I think that, just like you are, we just started this a few years ago, and you're leaving. And so had we not had this year, you'd be gone. And so this is just a snapshot in time that we capsulize what's going on and who our leaders are in our community. And so, so this is amazing for me, because I get to talk to all of you guys.
I bet.
I was a former journalist, so I really, used to talk to soldiers, right? Which is a whole other thing. but this is, this is the good stuff. And I really enjoy, talking to the leaders that are really making a difference in our community. And obviously I love that you're going to San Antonio because it has a really big military community as well. So we wish you nothing but the best, but we hope to see you at the gala on
the
20th.
It's a given. I literally was in San Antonio all day yesterday. I got home about 1 this morning, meeting all my staff for the first time.
Wow.
And I said, look, I have a couple of non-negotiables in Austin. I said, one is this gala on the 20th. The other is the Big Brothers Big Sisters gala on December 4th.
All right.
Yeah, I'm all in and can't wait. As a matter of fact, some of the other honorees are dear friends of mine that I'm going to enjoy just getting to see them in that setting. And I have to say, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but when you get this recognition, at least for me, it kind of steps up the game of accountability. Like I'm like, okay, I gotta, do this service and I gotta make sure I don't tarnish the brand, and I gotta up my game. And it's a welcome but humbling challenge to do more and be more, and challenge accepted. So
awesome. Well, that was my last question. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, other than thanks. I was thinking, if I were you, boy, what a gig. I mean, I know it's work, but getting to have these conversations, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with all of them. So yay, you. And I know it sounds trite, everybody says it, but thanks for your service. One of my favorite things about this move to San Antonio is all the work that they're doing with the military family. Matter of fact, last night at 8 o'clock, I was at one of their 5 businesses, which is a ginormous sports complex that has 18 different courts and fields that are all wheelchair accessible. And they're doing things like, pickleball tournaments for wounded warriors, you name it. And as you know, San Antonio is a huge, maybe one of the largest military communities in the country. But the fact that they're, choosing to make that a priority and show up for that community in that way is really exciting. I can't wait to be part of it.
Yeah, and I'm working on another project where we're working to provide funding to a lot of women and minority businesses, and so one of the companies, and there's another company that I actually am working with because I'm also a disabled veteran. And it's a lot of times people see you, like even my kids are like, Mom, you don't look like you're, and it's like, yeah, but you don't know this body.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on here. And so one of the companies that we're working on is actually to help people who have disabilities create companies. Because a lot of folks who are, who don't have sight or don't have, hearing or just different disabilities, they are not employed. And so helping them to create companies. And so I'd love to talk some more because, we're going to be looking for future entrepreneurs in that space to help them to build their company, right? To help them build their company, to help, to gain access, because, a lot of these companies like AI started with, folks trying to help people who, have disabilities. And so,
absolutely.
So I'm definitely excited about that particular project that we're working on outside of this other, because I think it's going to be important. And I think it's going to be really huge because right now it's the only company that's specifically geared toward financing and really building, accessibility, more accessibility. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. Well, I know you got a lot going on, but I don't have my new email address, but I'll email you my cell number and personal. And let's definitely stay in touch.
We'll definitely keep in touch. Because I mean, that's one of those places that, like I said, I thought it was so awesome. It's just, and just to see their faces when they're out there seeing something that looks like for them, and it's just like our, people of color. It's, it's like when you have something where you like, oh, they know me, they got it, right? They got it, they understand. And so, so it's just awesome. It's just amazing. So
cool. Cool,
All
cool.
right. Well, thank you again and for
Yeah.
your time. And I look forward to seeing you and your beautiful wife on the 20th.
We'll see you soon.
All
Yeah.
right. You
Thanks for
guys
everything.
take care. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye.